Welcome to the FATU Network. I am Omar Wali and I'm here with the country's Defense Minister, SHEIKH OMAR FAYE. As you all know, he's serving various capacities in this country, from the military to ambassador, and now he is the Gambia's Defense Minister. So I will have a discussion with him on so many issues in his career. Mr. Faye, thank you so much for your time and welcome to the FATU Network.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you.
I know you serve in the military, but you serve as an ambassador in many countries, United States, and chief of mission in Mauritania and so on. But who is SHEIKH OMAR FAYE?
Alhamdulillah. SHEIKH OMAR FAYE, 7475 Dobson Street. 60 years ago, I alighted at 7475 Dobson Street from my beloved parents, whom I have lost now, and blessings of Allah be unto them and all that pass, of Alaji Tijan Faye, who was the son of SHEIKH OMAR FAYE, and Ajaramatulai Tambedu, who was a daughter of Alaji Babakar Tambedu. Grew up in Banjul, went to school at Winley Primary School, and had a wonderful headmaster and headmistress, Master Martin and Mrs. Joyner, the mother of Sonny Alade Joyner, Remy Joyner, Dupe Joyner, and lots of them at McDonald Street. Went to Crab Island, no, before then went to Georgetown Primary School, went to Crab Island, and somebody found me, somebody called Reverend Father Joseph Goff, of blessed memory, who believed that I have lots of potentials. He believed in the future I can contribute to the Gambia. And he gave me in those days what they call an athletic scholarship. It must have been the first time that has been happening. So people were not really au fait with those. In the US now, you know, or around the world, they know about athletic scholarship. But in those days in the Gambia, it was very new. So Father Goff helped me up, paid some of my school fees, bought me school books, and made me to believe that I should go to school and study so that I will be respected. Also, let me do my training physically so that I'll be admired. And that has taken me to the Olympics and took me where I am today. So I thank my parents, I thank Father Goff and all that helped me grow up. But yes, basically, that is SHEIKH OMAR FAYE. In 1981 November, I enlisted in the then Gambia Field Force. It was called the Pioneer Unit, and under the command of Major Clive Lee, Royal Engineers Training Team. Basically, that started my career.
Okay, you made a mention of representing the Gambia in the Olympic Games. That was in 1984, if I'm correct. Which country was that?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That was in Los Angeles, at the University of California, Los Angeles. That's where we lived. And I was the captain of the Gambian team. I had the flag, Gambian flag, during the opening ceremony with our blue gowns under the leadership of the late Alaji Omar Sy, who was then really very instrumental in sports and foreign affairs in this country. Cherno Bara Toure, who's ambassador, Fred Lloyd Evans, Captain Kapi Dudu Diouf, and Sev Bambanjai of blessed memory. That's where we were in Los Angeles in 1984 with the Gambia Olympic team.
Okay, I understand you play football, basketball, and rugby at the time, and so on. But imagine in 1984, you are placed in the left, and for example, you place Ethiopian Gabriel Haile Selassie. Who do you think will come first?
No. I was there very, very proud to be represented the Gambia.
Right.
But remember, during those days, I was sent to the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst.
Yeah.
So the Gambia government wrote through the embassy in London. I still remember that Bala Gaba Jahumpa, Honorable Gaba Jahumpa, wrote that letter. I think he was first secretary at the embassy. He was second secretary, to the Army School of Languages to request that the Gambia needs me to represent them in the Olympic. And the British said, this is a very important assignment for your country, and you will be allowed to. So I was excused for a few weeks to go to the US in 1984.
Okay. 81, you joined the field force. 83, enlisted in the Gambia Armed Forces. Why the Gambia Army, the National Army, whatever you call it, because the name keeps on changing, why did you choose to join the army at a time when not only people, because many see it as a place for dropouts and so on, and parents will not even encourage their kids to go to the military.
Yes, in those days, that was not the perception. Remember, this was around November 81, just after the Kukoi Samba Sanyang aborted coup. So after completing high school, I taught at the Muslim high school for 1 year. A British Army officer saw me and told me that we do not have an army in the Gambia, but in the future you all are going to have an army. I think you'll make a good officer. So it was like through conversation that he felt it was a good career for me to serve my country. And he thinks I'll do good. So I told my dad. My dad said, well, your granddad said it's always good to have somebody from the family to serve in the uniform services. So it's your choice if you want to do it. This is what got me to serve my country in the then pioneer unit, because then there was no army, there was no gendarmerie. So that was end of November 81.
Okay, but you left the army. At that time, Jawara was, you left a year or so, his rule was punctuated with a coup d'etat. Did you suspect that there was going to be something like that?
Actually, I left and it was 5 weeks and it was a coup d'etat. I left here in June of 1994 to New York and then to the Command and General Staff College in 4th Leavenworth in Kansas City. On July 22nd, I received a call from the Commanding General telling me that there is a coup in your country. And they called me at the head office. So it was barely June 94. I think it was about June 12 or 13 to July 22nd. So I just left and there was a coup. So this was God's timing. It couldn't be anything else. I think that's just the way it was divine that I would not be here.
Divine intervention. Let's talk about, you were a company commander. You were sent to Liberia. A lot happened. I remember Charles Taylor launched a war from the Ivory Coast border coming down towards Monrovia. And after several times, end up overthrowing the government. Tell us what happened in Liberia and the role that Gambia and Chile Company play.
It was in 1990 that Sir Dawda of blessed memory was the chairman of ECOWAS. And he invited his colleagues, head of states, here at the Kairaba Beach Hotel in the Gambia, and to say that we must do something for Liberia. And through that meeting, it was when ECOMOG was formed. And then they chose Charlie Company. Not only Charlie, a lot of people joined, but it was really overwhelmingly Charlie Company. C Company, under my command, I was promoted to major to be a company commander. And we had the British Army training team, helped us train internal security, civil disobedience, civil disorders, protection of key installation, important points. That's internal security. So the British helped us. The Nigerians sent some C-130s to pick us from the airport, and we headed to Freetown. We went to Freetown for about a couple of weeks. We used to stay at a place called Hastings Barracks. That's when we had your friend or your former boss, Elizabeth Blunt, who was with us in Freetown. And then we ended up at the Freeport in Monrovia, where we were welcomed by shelling from Charles Taylor. As you said, he came from Nimba County. Yeah. And coming into Monrovia, the capital. But this is what happened. It was an authority, and ECOWAS took a decision, and Sir Dawda was chair, and they told him that you cannot sell everybody else's and leave your people. But he said, my army is a very small army. But Babangida agreed that we're going to support the Gambia. So we had an infantry company, and we were attached to a Nigerian brigade or something you call it, eventually to a Ghanaian battalion. But yes, because you cannot have a company by itself to go to war or to do anything. It's too small to do that. You always have to have it under command of a bigger outfit.
Jawara at the time said that Gambia had a small military, the size of the military. But does the size matter? Because I remember when the war broke out in Somalia, Bill Clinton sent troops, Operation Restore Hope, but end up they failed. But how about Gambia's performance at that time?
I think you're right. I was there as company commander in charge of the inner service of the Freeport. We had then a general called General Anol Quino, who was from Ghana, and some things happened. Then the late Samuel Doe was arrested in there. So the ECOWAS had an emergency meeting and changed command and brought in Joshua Nimiel Dogoyaro.
Okay, I have known this name.
You've heard that name?
Because the way I pronounce it is Dongonyaro.
Yeah, no, he's Dogonyaro.
Oh, Dogonyaro.
Dogoyaro.
Okay.
It's a Nigerian word. I mean,
yeah.
it's a tribal, something like a traditional
But
name.
I heard that it's a short one.
No.
Okay,
He's tall and big.
Okay.
He's taller than me, he's bigger than me.
Dogonyaro.
So when he came into Monrovia with a private jet, he was wearing a gown with a walking stick. And we thought it was Baines that came into Liberia because we thought that was not the general. He's this like a big marabou.
Yeah.
But at night, he changed to his outfit. And he said that ECOMOG is going to attack at all fronts. So you had the offshore bombardment, the Navy was bombing, the Air Force bombed, the artillery was bombing, and the infantry was moving. That's why if you witness that, you don't want trouble to have in your country because it's not good. And that's why we keep on saying, be patient, dialogue, because we've seen it. A lot of people are doing things, maybe they've not seen that experience. But to cut a long story short, yes, I was there for a few months. I got sick and I was evacuated. I handed over to my second in command, Captain Johnson, I think he's in the UK. We call him Acrobat. A very fine officer. And I went to Freetown and I ended up here at Westfield with Dr. Palmer. But that's another, I'm sure, an interview. But yes, this is what happened. Eventually, the Gambian company contingent were hailed in Liberia because of their professionalism. They're just good. They were just young soldiers from the Gambia. They used to call them the young heartbreakers. That's what the Liberian ladies were calling them, the young heartbreakers. When you want food, they'll give you food. Everything you want, you have to go to the Gambian contingent because of their politeness and their professionalism. And they were in the front. We had good officers, Pamodu Ann, Kambi, I think SP Mendy was with us, and they were platoon commanders in my company. And we had senior officers from the Gambian army then. The late Pamodu Gay, who was the most senior cadet, who was our boss. You have Maba Job, who was number 2, and they were all Dennis Koka, Marong, Bojang. A lot of people were at the ECOMOG headquarters, but different from the infantry fighting company that I was commanding.
The man who led that war against Samuel Doe, Charles Taylor, he once said, all wars are terrible. All wars are terrible. After the Civil War, he said, if he had known, he would not have overthrown the government. Was that because of the loss of life and property and the destruction it caused Liberia? Tell us, was any Gambian was involved who lost his life during the peacekeeping mission or the peace enforcement? Because there is peacekeeping, and I'm sure you people went there for peace enforcement, not peacekeeping.
Yeah, at the beginning we went for peacekeeping.
Okay.
That's why, but when the dynamics changed, that's why Dogonyaro led Nigerian divisions with Ghanaian division, Sierra Leone, Gambian to attack Taylor. And that's why overnight he called for a ceasefire because there was too much firepower on him. It's a very interesting scenario. And Taylor regretted, I'm not surprised he does. Even in the American armed forces, they did a survey. A lot of people who fought in Iraq or Afghanistan don't want to fight again. They don't want a war because it's not good. So when Samuel Doe was arrested, and we were moving from what they call the inner cordon to the outer cordon, we were hopping over dead bodies. Over 60 generals were killed. So it was the entire government that came from the executive mansion to come to the Freeport. That was the day that government collapsed. They asked him to come out from the mansion. They did everything. They bombed. He said no. But one day, when the time was up, the entire government were in a convoy. They came to the Freeport. As I said, over 60 generals. The Gambian company was hopping over dead bodies to go and take over our new position. So it's not good. And we pray that, it don't happen anywhere.
As we speak, even former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf did not occupy the executive mansion, I remember. But did any Gambian die in that process?
We did. We had 2 soldiers of blessed memory, Sama Jao and Bojang. Bojang was a medic. Jao was a private soldier in my company. And it was through a rocket-propelled grenade that came from outside and hit the target out there. And the splinters, that's what. I remember Bojang running, going back into his room to lie on his bed. And that was, we cried that night because this is the first time the Gambia has experienced that. I remember Maba Job will bear me witness, and all those officers, platoon commanders. It was the Nigerians, the Ghanaians, who helped us to show us what to do, because it was new that we have to watch our own soldiers perform the rituals and bury them at the free port.
So put quite simply, that was your baptism of fire.
That was a very, and then it was raining that night and the rebels were still shelling. It was some bad memories. But we named one of them after the shooting range in Birkama, Sama Jawo. He's originally from the Basse area.
I remember.
Bojang, I think, from Nyomi. I once asked him, Bojang, these are very difficult times. How do you pray in here? He said, sir, if you cannot pray physically, you pray spiritually. I will always remember that gentleman. And but eventually, Colonel Samsudin Sar and I think it was under former president, they agreed to go and exhume the bodies to bring them back to the Gambia. That was very good. But yes, we lost 2 people.
Former BBC correspondent in West Africa, he ended up in the African Union, Elizabeth Blunt, covered extensively live civil war in Liberia and Sierra Leone. And I made to understand that you saved her life, rather, the Charlie Company. What happened?
Yeah, and I will insist to think that I personally saved her. It was the company. I mean, these soldiers are the ones doing. Union were mostly centralized. The soldiers are maybe in the front and in the back and everywhere, and the command will basically be towards the middle. But it was under our leadership we saved her from Freetown, and also make sure that we have, when the bombs and the artillery attacked the Freeport, some people went into the ship. It was the only government minister that escaped. I think it was the Minister of Communication. A lot of the ministers were killed. And Blunt and a few people also went into that vessel that sailed back to Freetown. And then some of us stayed in Liberia. So Elizabeth Blunt gave some extraordinary reporting to the world about the professionalism of the Gambian soldiers. And I can assure you, he said they are young and brilliant, and you can. This is a young, but they had the passion. They know their roles, and they are Gambians. They're very polite, but they're very strong. So those are good times as well.
After all those incidents and so on, you left. You went to America and so on. I understand you had a 6-hour meeting with Jammeh in a hotel.
Yes.
What was the meeting about? Was it to negotiate your coming back home? Yeah,
partly it was. Some good people arranged the meeting, and I was in Atlanta. I think it was Tijan Cisse was very instrumental in, telling me that the right thing to do. I remember it was a day when I met Jammeh. It was when Gambia flew to Peru on the 17th.
On the 17th, rather.
I think Honorable Samba Fall must have been Minister of Youth and Sports then. Then Lang Tombong was in. So Lang Tombong also has always been very supportive of me, because I brought him into the sporting arena. He's like a younger brother to me as well, because our aunt Yanyima Baji, who married to her uncle for over 50 years at our house, is like auntie to Lang. So Gambia. But yes, this was when I was supposed to meet him for 30 minutes, and I tell them no problems. So I got out of Atlanta. I flew from Atlanta to New York. And instead, when I met the former president, we met for about 6 hours. Every time I want to go, he would say, no, just stay. Until he said, okay, just wait for dinner. And then, so, he teased between the Jolas and the Syrians. But one thing he also told me that we've never had any problems with you. We believe that you were a good officer. Why don't you go home? Because you're staying in the US, you can do a lot in the Gambia. And he also told me that I learned that your mother passed away and you never even went to the Gambia. So we had a very passionate chat, and I listened to him. Then he remembered the days we were in the army. He believed that we used to make the army to be very interesting. We used to have battalion sports, battalion run, everything we were together as a battalion. And he used to He used to, I think, cherish that. And he mentioned, we just remembered, we went through memory lane and talk about things when he was in the gendarmerie and when we were in the army under Colonel Ndaunjai. So,
that was nearly many, many years ago since you left the Gambia Armed Forces. Compare that time and now. How resilient is the Gambia Armed Forces?
It's a different timing. It's a different situation. Sir Dawda wanted a small and a very professional army. In fact, he was always reluctant about an army. But he was told that it's important. No country is too small. It's important to have a small army as a symbol of pride and peace. So that army was very young under the British Army training team. We had British came here to help set up the first company of the Gambian army. With this, of course, the directive was to give it to Colonel Ndaunjai. And the first permanent secretary, Minister of Defense, the late Mustafa Babukar Wada, MB Wada. So that army was small growing up. This army is now also well trained. Lots of officers were trained, but they have gone through some dynamics which had brought problems in the army in terms of regimentation and in terms of the normal standing operational procedures because of obvious reasons. Like the former president was there and there was direct interference in the armed forces. So now what happened is before it was all under command, under a chain of command, but eventually it came under also one man. So now we're trying to regroup, restructure, and reposition the army to make sure that all the pieces are picked back together. It was a collective responsibility. There is no way you'll blame one person. So this is where we are. That army was very small, almost a company. When you talk about a company in the army, it's like what a platoon is about 33. A company could be about 145. A battalion could be about 450 or 500. Depends on the country. A battalion can even be 700. Battalion, because of the support element, the trucks, the vehicle, the fuels, the people in charge of mechanics and so on. But yes, this army and that army are completely different in terms of size. And now we're just trying to regroup and make it to be a professional army that will live up to expectation for the Gambians.
Following the 2016 presidential election, you were first ambassador to Colin Jame to relinquish power. Some said you are unloyal, some said you betray him, others said you defied the former president. What do you say to that?
We have to respect the will of the Gambian people. What I've said several years ago, I'm going to say again today.
Right.
Hopefully, if I'm still alive doing what I do, if you ask me down the line, I'll tell you the same thing. No matter where the pendulum of power swings, always stay with the truth. That's what my parents taught me. That's where professionalism taught me. And that's my conviction, that it was not right for an election to be decided by a majority of the country. But because of my position as ambassador, or a friend, or a colleague, that I have to break what the Gambians have decided. So I talked to myself. It took a long time. I've talked to colleagues. I've attended meetings. I've listened to myself, had meetings at the State Department, talked to Gambians, both in the Gambia and diaspora. At the end of the day, I believe that the right thing to do is to disassociate myself and told former president that the best thing for you is to respect the will of the people and go. You've done what you could have done. There were mistakes on the way. No one is infallible. You had problems. The best thing for you is to move. Man, this was my conviction. No hard feelings, no disloyalty. I think that decision was best for him. I was doing it out of good faith. If I have to sacrifice my job as ambassador, and that's why somebody told me, do you know that you've taken a big risk? I said, when I was doing it, I was not thinking about risk. I was just saying that no matter where the pendulum of power swings, always stay with the truth. That's my conviction, and I have nothing against him or anybody. That is just Sheikh Omar Faye. And up to today, that's the way I behave. If I see something that is right, I'll try to encourage it. If I see something that is wrong, I'll call the attention of the individual and say that this is not right. Even my own brother, the Imam, if he does something that's not right, I will call his attention to it. That's just my nature.
Right. This was a man who persuaded you to come back to the Gambia. Mm-hmm. And when the Arab Spring started in the Maghreb, you have seen a similar incident happen there. Mustafa Abdul Jalil was there and he was brought in by Gaddafi. He gave him everything, but I remember in one cabinet meeting, he had an issue. Gaddafi insulted his mom, and it was Saif al-Islam who even saved his life. But after the war, it was Jalil who provided support with other foreign powers to remove Gaddafi. Do you think that was the right thing to do? At least instead of just condemning Jammeh, you could have engaged him and persuaded him.
Well, that is also a line of thinking. But remember, there was a time, I don't think it was easy to call and persuade. I was in Washington. Jammeh was in Banjo. And in those days, sometimes it wasn't even easy to access Jammeh. I think it was General Baji that was the focal person. And also Jammeh had his own team. I was ambassador. My job was in America, not in the Gambia. He had advisors in the Gambia. He had people that was dealing with him. My jurisdiction was the United States of America. Of course, if I had opinions, I can tell him, but you're talking about, you want to talk to people who may want to listen. So, but with my age and experience, and with my character, I just figured this is the right thing to do. I've never disrespected him or anybody. Nobody will tell you I've ever seen Sheikh Omar Faye insulting Jammeh or anybody. I don't do that, and I will never do that. But I will tell people with respect what I think. So this was my thinking, being a senior person who's been in the army for a very long time, whilst a lot of them were in school. So I was no more a small boy who would be running around. And I think Jammeh will bear you witness and say, this guy is a straight guy. I don't tell lies to him. I don't tell him stuff. I don't hang around. I go do my job. But he knows that, I think he knows that I'm a serious man. I'm not here to beat my chest. But I think he will tell you that he's a peaceful person, and he's a person who was a good officer.
So from what you are saying, Jammeh is not the type of person he should be?
Well, you know, I've known Jammeh in those days. He was in the gendarmerie. Okay. Jammeh has never been in the Gambian army until the Nigerian army recommended that the military police wing of the gendarmerie should come to the army. That's when Jammeh... So Jammeh did not stay long over there. I think most of his training was military police and the Gambia gendarmerie in Bakau. He was never in Yundum with us when we started. But eventually he came, and he was head of the military police. But that happened just a few months, I think. That's when the coup happened.
When you desert Jammeh, if I may put it that way, how many ambassadors did you influence at the time?
I don't know. I know ambassadors have been talking among ourselves, and there have been lots of bureaucracy and protocol on the way. But at some stage, I figured I need to do what I had to do. I thought timing is very important. I thought my conviction is very important. But when I did that, of course, I consulted a few of my colleagues, a few hours before I did it, both my colleagues in Washington and I think one of the ambassadors who was serving that. You know what, guys? Tonight, I've taken a decision. I'm going back to the embassy at 5630 16th Street, embassy that my team bought for the first time in the history of the Gambia, that we own an embassy. We've always been renting. Okay. I went there at about midnight, and it was 1 in the morning that that document was completed to say that I think the best thing to avert civil war and constitutional crisis, I think I've taken a decision as ambassador of the Gambia to the United States to call it quits and say, no, I'm not going to be part of it. If I have to go eat grass, so be it. But I want to maintain my honor, dignity. I don't want to be part of running around. That's never been me. So maybe about 11 after came, and also maybe another week later, some of my colleagues also wrote, and I think that's how it went.
At that time, you were serving as an ambassador. Now you are serving your capacity as a defense minister. In the event that similar thing happened again, and Barrow refused to go, what will you do?
Barrow refused to go somewhere?
After election, if election defeat.
And he lost?
Yes, and he lost.
To tell you the truth,
yeah.
I don't think he will do that. No. Now I cannot preempt.
Okay.
You see, it don't happen. No.
In the event that it happens.
Knowing him as a person, okay. Trust me, I may be knowing him as a person, the way I've known him before he's president. You know people, you know their character. That he will lose election and he said, I'm not going. Yeah. Maybe by that time I'll take my decision, but now it's not difficult. But personally, I don't think he will do that. I think he's a person who respects the rule of law.
The little time you spent in Liberia, what was your record?
Liberia, it was the first experience. I have commanded an infantry company. It was the first time Gambia is sending an infantry company. But our company was so closely knitted that we were the champion company of the Gambian Army. We used to win competition. That's what they call annual personal weapon test in the Army, combat fitness test, drill, lots of competition. Any soldier who served then will tell you. And Charlie Company has always been on top, and I was commanding it. So when we were in Liberia, we had a group that already had that closely knitted relationship, and they used to call them, or we call ourselves, Esprit de Corps, because we always stand together. So our record cannot only be me, it will be Captain Johnson, my 2IC, Lieutenant Ann in those days, who was eventually Colonel, I believe, Pamudo Ann, Kambi, whom was with me at Muslim High School when I was passing by before going to the Army, and I think also some SP Mendy, my former classmate, we have lost him. And I may be mistaken, and several other officers. So our record there was, I pulled out a group from Dogonyaro the first time he came, and he sent me a very strong message overnight and said, I want the Gambians to come back to protect me. I'm not choosing any country. And he's from Nigeria, but he preferred the Gambian team because of their loyalty and their professionalism and the way they were just very serious. So that record cannot be me alone. I was just part of a group called Charlie Company, and they did a great job, but I had to leave them because of medical reasons. And then at the end of the day, their record is still very high in Liberia.
Looking at what happened at the time, and now, like the small, just military was formed and you went to peacekeeping, and compare with now, what do you think is the problem, or was the problem with the Gambia Armed Forces?
In what aspect? In
terms of professionalism. At the time, they were seen handing out T-shirts, being involved in politics and so on. Okay,
that's why I told you some things went wrong. And that's why it's all part of the reforms. But guess what? Even if you go to the UN or Darfur or wherever, the Gambian peacekeeping mission is on top, has a very high record. And this is something that the British will tell you, the French, Americans, everybody. Even the EU, they will tell you that in terms of peacekeeping, the Gambians are great. That's why they're in Darfur. They've been in different parts of the world. And they've performed so well that, in fact, countries are even requesting now that they would want to really see the Gambia Armed Forces to continue peacekeeping. So they have a very high record, even our present people. Yep.
Okay, now, with high record, but what are the areas that need improvement in the Gambia Armed Forces?
Regimentation, terms and conditions of service, the basic standing operational procedures. So there are things that need to come back. And when we talk about regimentation, it means a lot in the Army. When we talk about respecting the rule of law, staying out of politics, forget about tribalism, or sectionalism, or nepotism. Those things don't have space in the Army. Any good Army will avoid those things because it's not good. You know what the Army wants? Professionalism, competence, character, capacity, the love for country, patriotism, loyalty, sincerity, not tribalism. Not because Omar Wali is from Wuli, I have to promote him. No, that's not the Army. So we have learned, I think the armed forces know what the situation is. They're full of very qualified officers and men. So now we're going to regroup to get it right. And then these things happen in many places in the world where you get into some bottlenecks and you regroup and look for avenues of redress, get back, look at the records, come back together and put it back in the order. So it's everybody's business. We will need the support of the population, the armed forces, the government, so that we know what to do. We just need the support. I can tell you we have a template of which way to go. So it's a very good armed forces. The Gambia should know that the armed forces was also a victim. They were a victim. They suffered big time. Everybody is listening to the TRRC. Some people felt they were not treated properly. Yeah. Some people lost seniority. You're having people who've been promoted from nowhere to the top. You have people who've been demoted from the top to the bottom. In Army, when you promote, there's what they call a promotion board. Army, one man don't get up and be promoting to that level. You have what they call a promotion board. And those things we are going to bring back. That's what our intention is. With the support, I'm sure we will get through.
There was an incident in the Gambia we call galloping.
Galloping.
Galloping promotion.
Yeah.
Was that something also that
I've
affected?
never heard of that, Omar.
Okay, like you promote a soldier from a private soldier to an officer,
Ooh.
like something he was, he doesn't deserve it in the military, but he's just there because he's loyal to a certain individual.
Galloping promotion.
Yeah.
What I know about gallop, when you used to know somebody called Bambo Fati, he was the best 400-meter runner at some stage in the Gambia, and when he galloped in Makati Square, it's fun to watch. But I can understand galloping promotion.
Yeah.
That's not good. Promotion needs to be earned. You have to have capacity. You have to do a course. Every rank in the army has to have a course.
So you should leapfrog when...
Exactly. You should be cautiously walking through. Terms and conditions of service will spell out everything. If Omar Wali is a second lieutenant, he needs to go to training as a platoon commander. After a couple of years, he needs to become a full lieutenant. He needs to do a training. After a couple of years, 3 years, he has to be a captain. He has to do a company commander's course. After captain, he needs to be a major. He needs to do another course, staff college. After major, he needs to come to lieutenant colonel. Colonel, a full colonel. A lot of people say a full colonel is the line, but the rest, a lot of it is politics. You go to war college, or the leadership of a country decides to promote somebody. It's no more about running. You are now a general or a senior person. It's about policy, it's about politics. It's no more commanding companies. So that's why some people will tease the army and say that everything stops at colonel, because that's when you become a battalion commander, or a brigadier becomes brigade commander. But after that, all these generals you're seeing, in most of countries in the world, is more of politics and policy, and who the government is comfortable with, that they are loyal to the leadership. Very important.
So I remember, if my memory serves me well, Edward served as a defense minister, but after the transitional period and so on, the Gambia did not have a defense minister, although we have a permanent secretary at the Ministry of Defense, until when you were appointed. For the benefit of the audience, what is the role of defense minister?
The role of the minister and the Minister of Defense is to be an oversight of the armed forces. We provide the guidelines on the running of the armed forces. We provide the policies, the defense policies, the strategic policies, and we make sure that the armed forces is answerable to the Ministry of Defense in terms of what they want to do. They have to have clearance in some of the things they do. It's different from the internal trade, but I think the bottom line is that the Ministry of Defense is an oversight ministry of the armed forces. We are responsible to provide them what they need. They also are responsible to be there, and through us, of course, the Commander-in-Chief, the President. So Ministry of Defense basically ensure that the armed forces are on training, they have what they need, they're doing what they're supposed to do, they're staying out of politics, they have training, they're doing their courses, they're doing their internal training, and they're protecting the territorial integrity of the country. So this is the ministry that looks at those things. And also the armed forces back to the ministry to give them updates on what's going on, what their requirements are. If they need bilaterals with other countries, the Ministry of Defense will step in. And of course, the Chief of Defense Staff is a very senior, he's most senior officer with his team. So they also have their operational responsibility. That is the day-to-day running of the armed forces that we don't involve in, because that is more of internal. But we are at a distance to look at them, to make sure that they stay within their limits.
Does it mean Gambia not having defense minister for a couple of years also have a negative effect on the military?
It may have some limitations, because the president may not have enough time to really look at the armed forces.
Right.
He'll be very busy. He's there looking at agriculture, looking at health, looking at fisheries, looking at youth and sports, all areas of government, including his own office of the president. So maybe then he may not have the time needed to give to the armed forces. And then the government may turn around and say, we need to appoint a minister who is responsible for the armed forces. And it happens, as I said before, Honorable Sheikh Sabali did it for Sadauda, briefly. Edward, who was at the beginning one of our platoon commanders that used to be with us very closely, eventually also be MOD. But after a long absence, President has taken a decision that I have to identify somebody that I think has a background, and with the right support, he'll be able to deliver to the Gambian people and to me as Commander-in-Chief to look after the armed forces and make sure that they are stabilized and their roles are clear and they know what they need to do for this country. And that's the advantage of an MOD.
The Chief of Defense Staff announced last year that they were going to downsize the Gambian armed forces. And part of it, and we also, many people are talking about the security sector reform. What can you tell us about? Because most people do not have a clear understanding of the meaning of this security sector reform.
Security sector reform happens overwhelmingly around the world. At some stage, the army or some countries get into a situation where they need reforms. Reform is a continuous process. But some of it is, and I will have to crave the indulgence of people, the population, to continue to bear with us. It's not an easy task. It is lots of complications, lots of things are involved, but so far a lot has been happening internally that the average civilian would not know. There has been restructuring within, and it's still progressing. Now the phase we are coming into is to do some restructuring again based on what we need in the army, including, as you said, the downsizing. CDS will do some recommendation with his senior people and feel that some of these people are due for retirement. They've got to go. Some of these people may be having a rank that is not at par with their capacity. Some of them have to be redeployed. So it's a process that needs patience. It cannot happen. Gambians mostly, we are always in a hurry on things, but these things need patience to be done properly because it's for our children and their children. It's not something you have to tough rek nga jehal, did it. You have to do it properly and honestly. And in that case, you have to go from here to Basse to look at the structures, look at the people, look at the men, look at the equipment. What does the Gambia needs? And based on that, that's when you will reposition. So, I mean, we're progressing, and I'm sure people will continue to see that there is progress. And inshallah, I'm very optimistic that I think the Gambians will very soon appreciate that the reforms are in progress.
What is the state of relations between the defense minister and the CDS?
CDS is like my younger brother. When I was a major in the army, CDS started at Yundum camp. So I've seen him to be very respectful. I've seen him to be a professional officer. And our age brackets don't make us, you cannot be friends with everybody. He's not my friend because we are in a different age bracket. And maybe we don't go to the same, social engagements or something. But one thing I can tell you, he's very respectful. But he's always been like that, even when we found him, when he found us at Yundum camp. And when I visited him, he said it. He said he was a member of the family, he left, but he has come back. I think he was the missing puzzle. So as far as I'm concerned, myself and all of them have good relationship. But it's not about personal, it's about what is best for Gambia. It's about the legacy. And me and him talked about this also. He also believes that legacy outlives life. It's not about beating a chest. No, it's about, I have contributed my quota, but what is best for Gambia? So whether it's CDS Kinte, Drame, Cham, and the rest of the officers, I've known these people for a long time. Very long time. Like Drame and Kinte and Mama Cham for decades. We were all at Yundum camp. They're all professional officers, and they're doing their best for the armed forces. They're good people.
Is Gambia Armed Forces prepared or ready to take charge of this country in the event that foreign troops leave the country?
They have the capacity.
So if there is a capacity, why are they still here then?
Because it was not their decision. We were in a crisis. So we should not forget very fast. We were in a constitutional crisis that also involved them. You cannot be a judge and a lawyer and a prosecutor as well. So like in Liberia, That's why we went there. They had armed forces in Sudan, in Darfur. But because there were some problems, that's why ECOWAS President Smith and feel that we want to preserve small Gambia. We don't want this country to be disintegrated. They have constitutional crisis. They have problems. The army has problems. The commander-in-chief then, with relationship with the army, he had some issues, and they decided to come. So not everywhere that foreign troops go, that the armed force is not good. No, it depends on why they were there. And I think everybody, including all of us, wanted them to be here because we wanted to maintain, and we don't want the armed forces to be a player and at the same time be a joy. So we wanted to bring people who are neutral under the directives of presidents. Several presidents in ECOWAS, in fact, all of them agreed that ECOMIC has to come in.
So how long will this continue? Because they are here for 3 years now. And you talk to most Gambians, they say the Gambian armed forces, they are redundant.
Well, maybe then they don't know. The Gambian armed forces are not redundant. When they are sleeping in their beds, the Gambian armed forces, they are out in checkpoints around the country. So if they say that they are redundant, that is a big flaw, and I want to call their attention. Please, you cannot say that to your brothers and sisters in the armed forces. They are from Basse to Berending to Farafenye to Dasila. They are in different parts of Joytown. They are doing a lot of service for the population. They are not redundant, I can tell you that right now. Maybe the armed forces will have, like in Senegal, when they have a program where they will come and talk to the population. Armée Nation, there's one program in Senegal, even when we were young. Every Sunday or so, the Army PRO or some people will come to the radio and to talk to the population, to brief them about their activities. But they're doing good. They're doing good.
Gis na ne danga serve as an ambassador, when you can minister, and so on, many other things. But we have seen so many differences, especially come in the areas of politics. Lan nga am pour xale or especially ñoo xam ne ñoo nekk ci politics.
Li ma bëgg a mooy itam I'm glad ne Omar Wali léegi kay sa olof bi is getting very well.
You know what happened? When I master one language and I speak the other one, it dropped down the
other one. So at your capacity now, trial, so bi, sarahaw malala. But I mean, it's good language yep leg ñu mos ci tuuti.
Right.
Xale yi pour ñu def ndanka. Politics of confrontation ñu moytu ko. Xam nga lu tax?
Yeah.
Dëkk bi dafa tuuti. Ba pare ñun ñëpp bokk lañ. This country is unique. You have your opinion. Well, share your opinion. You don't need to insult you to tell you what I think. You're young man like man. Wow. You may have a difference of opinion. Why do I have to insult you? Civilized people don't do that. And also, man, I just want this generation to know that this country is for them. For some of us, we have done overwhelmingly. Ñun def nañ lu bari luñ wara def de. Luñu déssé Yalla xam na né yalla nañ fi yagate wër way ci service bareetu torop. Why dañ bëgg xalé yi build up capacity, competence and character. Jarut ñu sagante, jarut ñu misinform, ñu wax lu du dëgga. Jarut ñuy def insincerity. The Americans they are two-faced. Omar Wali come, I clap for him. Mu joxe gannaaw ma gasal ko pa. Let them stop those things. That's not good. The Gambia is one family. Let us disagree, but let us respect each other. So lolu la bëgga daal suñ xalé yi nañ jànga ñu am métier ba pare ñu am xam-xam so that they can compete around the world. Gambians yi alhamdulillah ñu ngi fu nekk de from fu ma jógee in Saudi Arabia at the Islamic Development Bank, World Bank, African Development Bank. For them, ECOWAS, I just spoke to a lady who's a commissioner, a Gambian, Dr. Siga Jai. Yeah. She's a commissioner in Abuja. You know, Nyom Ifal at the African Development Bank. At several said Gambians, they have served around the world, well respected. So then buga xalé yi ñom tam ñu def ndanka. Réew lu ko amé moy du xéxanté ak di ciow moy maturity. Moy suñ né bo ci agaay ñu def ñu defante ndanka. I think the future is bright for them. Lool la leena wax né xalé yi lool la.
So finally, before we end this interview, what will be your message to the general public?
The general public, let us embrace peace. Ne la ñu def ndanka. Xam nga scriptures yi dañ wax benn wax ñu ne fitna ngeen nelaw yàlla roba na ku ko ee. We are one people. We are one family. Yàlla nag mooy maye lu ko neex di jox nit lu ko neex. su doon jàngal la mun naa am xëj na yow fu nga toog na ko but that's just the way it is. So man younger generation bi ma gën a xam mooy let us bring peace. Let us prepare this country for 2022 so that this country will change.
2022.
It's the OIC.
Oh, okay.
ñu ngi war a yokk tali yi xale yi nañ ci jàppa ñu ngi war a clean environment bi xale yi nañ ci jàppa tourism area bi ñu respect suñ boppa but let xale yi prepare to take over this country eventually. It's their country because ñun teg nañ fi over pare tukki nañ all around the world léegi ñu ngi dellu si we want to be in peace te man maa ñu bari the younger generation should come up waaye dëkk kenn du ko bil ci xuloo ak xeex ak di defante ak di yaxante koo yaaxa after nga dem ne ko xay ndeke numbering lem ndeke kii suma lii la please loolu bu mu leen daal. Also let us respect the rule of law. Gambia dañ ko def democracy. Our founding father was a role model around the world. Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara. He was called in Iran, Iraq, in Bulgaria, in different parts of the world. In Liberia, he chaired ECOWAS. Kooku mooy suñ maam mooy suñ baay mooy di fan so yeneen dëkk yi président bu ñu am noonu is very peaceful. Loo wax mu ne la if you disagree go to the rule of law. So amee président bu laa wax loolu so this is daal my advice to the general public that the coow bi bari na ñu ngee joxe fii nit ñaa ngi some of it is their right but let them respect the rule of law. Let them engage community policing. Community bi nañ work ak law enforcement so that when you see something that is wrong in this country fii mooy sa dëkka fii rek nga am soo génnee feneen you'll be second class citizen. Let us try to take ownership of this country waaye yëfi jàmm bi daal laa la wax ne boobu nañ ko def bul def yoo xam ne ëllëg you will be found wanting. And if you have issues now you have a question and you have a problem go to the law, go to the court. It's a country of laws. The law is very clear. Jarut pour masagala da mu if I disagree I'll just go to the courts and malifin so ñun ñëpp li olof yi di wax ñu dem fi mbaxana nekkee benn.
Wow.
So Omar Wali loolu mooy as Minister of Defense here and a former army officer who had traveled widely, who also took part in peacekeeping, I'll advise Gambians to all exercise restraint and embrace peace. Because coow baaxut bi ko fii dafa tuuti. That's why we were worried when 7,000 troops wanted to come in during the impasse when I was in Washington. I sent an audio to the armed forces. Now, be very careful. You have a mandate. Your children are watching you. And you have to, history will judge us. So my advice to myself, my family, and to all Gambians, please, let us concentrate on national development. Gambia can be one of the best countries in the world. We've just completed a $50 million conference hall. Bohamne is almost the biggest in West Africa. We can be having people organizing conferences in here. Tourism comes in. OIC being you prepare so that the whole 57 Islamic countries will come here. Where can they come if there is always fighting? It's not good for you. You are the young people. They say, Alhamdulillah. But young people, they should have a chance to stay and live with dignity. That's my advice for people to calm down, be patient, and let us stay together as one Gambia, one nation, one people, and to be a beacon of hope and peace, Omar Wali.
Peace is cheaper. They say peace is cheaper. War is costly sustained.
I agree.
Because in war, even the king can lose his sword. Thank you so much for your...
Well said. Thank you, Omar.
Well, viewers, thank you so much for your time. That's Sheikh Omar Faye, the Gambia's defense minister there. We thank you so much for your time and bye for now.
Thank you.